Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are continuing our exploration of Aether Drift cards, and this time we're looking at goblins with the new hotness of Howlsquad Heavy. This is a 3-mana 2/3 with the new Start Your Engines mechanic, which is where you kind of get like an emblem that has 4 settings, and when you deal combat damage you go up a setting. When you get to 4, that's your max speed, and then you unlock the max speed ability of adding red for each goblin you control. Now we've seen cards like this before, a 3-mana 2-power goblin that makes another goblin every turn that attacks. The difference here is this gives your other goblins haste. So this is basically a lot like having a Goblin War Chief, except instead of making your spells costless, it just gives you more goblins. And sometimes gives you lots of mana, which in a deck like this is pretty good. You know, you can hardcast Muxus or Ringleader and the stuff we get off of it, or Matron into something. So it's pretty relevant text on that. So this goblins list comes from Eli Goings, aka Goblin Lackey 1. They are one of my go-to people for goblins decks, and I will put their link to their Patreon in the description. If you want to learn more about goblin decks, I highly recommend checking out what they're putting out. So, our deck is an oldie but a goodie. It's a classic deck here. So, we're an Aether Vial deck. There's not many of those actually around in Legacy at the moment. But I think it makes sense in this one because we are trying to do a lot with our mana here. You know, we're trying to, play our tutors, play our things that draw us a bunch of cards. But we are obviously a typal creature deck here. So, Goblin Lackey is the big hit. So, this comes in, attacks 1, lets us put in any goblin. That could be a Muxus and the game could just end right there. Or it could be, Matron, find something for next turn or whatever. There's another new card here. Greasewrench Goblin. So this is 1 mana, 2/1. Exhaust, so this is an ability that you can play once. Discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards and put a +1/+1 on this creature. So this is just an aggressive creature that can also filter our draws a little bit later on. We've got a Skirk Prospector as well, which allows us to get extra mana so we can get up to playing some of the big sort of game-ending things. We have Battle Cry Goblin. This card has really impressed me since it came out. So this gives us hasty goblins, it pumps our goblins, gives us more goblins, everything we want. We've got the Hordemaster, so when our little goblins dies, we get more cards. So you can see there's a lot of card advantage and churning in this deck, so we can grind pretty hard. We've got removal in Munitions Expert, Boggart Trawler, which is a land, or a piece of graveyard hate, and it can be either, which is pretty good when we have a tutor for it. Broadside Bombardiers, arguably the best goblin in Legacy. I think it probably is. This just keeps boards clean and just absolutely wrecks people. Gempalm Incinerator, an uncounterable bit of removal. It can be stifled and stuff, but can't be counterspelled. We've got ourselves a Goblin Sharpshooter. With all these 1/1s we're making, this is going to ping for loads of damage and can control boards quite nicely. Pashalik Mons, when all these little goblins we're making die, we get to ping our opponent for damage, or we can ping one of their creatures, we can just keep their board clean. Sling-gang Lieutenant, this lets us have a bunch of reach and just drain our opponent out. And then the Ringleaders to sort of cash in with some more cards. So, lots of cool goblins in here. I can't really speak to the exact numbers of all these goblins, but if you're interested, that's what the link in the description is for. Check it out. Mana base wise, we've got a few Ancient Tombs to sort of power out some of our bigger drops. We have a lot of 3 drops here, so I understand why that's there. We've got ourselves a Fetch Out mana base. We don't have any swamps. We do have 1 Raucous Theater. Obviously, we get to play Cavern of Souls, so we get to play uncounterable goblins, which is nice. And we've got some Wastelands, so that when we're ticking up our vial, we can strip our opponent's resources and keep them further back while we're accelerating our board. Sideboard wise, we got some graveyard hate. There's some really busted graveyard stuff. Makes sense to have this. A bit more graveyard hate. A sort of generic thing that can hit a bunch of different stuff, whether it's going to be making Thassa's Oracles cost more in our Doomsday decks, or stopping the One Ring. This is quite handy. Trash Master, blowing up artifacts. A nice Maze of the Moon to shut down some of these land style decks. Pyrokinesis, if we need even more creature removal, we've got it in spades. And then we've got a bunch of blasts because we are a red deck. And there's plenty of stuff we would like to blow up with these Pyroblasts. So yeah, that's the list. I'm excited to try out. Goblins is always a really fun experience to play, even to play against. I think it's just a great deck that exists, and I hope it's going to be empowered by a couple of new cards from Aether Drift, and it'll be more of a regular feature in games of Legacy, because I do enjoy Goblins a lot. It's a quintessential part of Magic the Gathering to me. Alright, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's start our engines. If you want to play some Eternal Magic, why not check out the New York City first annual Eternal Team Trios Winter Tournament. This is a Legacy, Modern and Vintage team event, and team events are always some of the best Magic events going, so why not check it out if you're in the area. Our first hand is a touch slow, I would say, but we can grind pretty well here. We can go and find whatever we need. Are we supposed to mulligan to a 1-drop though? Given the pace of Legacy right now, maybe we are. Like, what decks does this hand beat? Not actually that many, like maybe a slow control deck we could kind of grind through. I think we're going to actually mulligan this and go for something a little bit quicker. Okay, so the Aether Vial is a handy tool to have access to here. What are we putting back? It's probably the Sling-gang Lieutenant. So we'd probably have to play Cavern on 1 just to get the Vial ticking. Commercial District. This mainly is a card that you see out of the Epic Storm. So might not be the most amount of time for us to play in this game. These sorts of really low to the ground combo decks are certainly not where you want to be as a Goblins player. Urza's Saga. Okay. It could be like a Saga Storm variant. Oh no, we're a Painter perhaps. Interesting. I would very much like to draw... I guess there's nothing really we can draw here that actually helps us that much. The Devourer. So if they have the Soul Cauldron, we do just die next turn. That doesn't feel like a place where I want to be. Another Aether Vial. That's not the one, is it? Alright, Raucous Theater. Let's hope that we can get where we need to be. A Wasteland. We do quite like the idea of stopping this Urza Saga. I'll put it on top of my library. And I think we play out the other Vial. Just start them ticking. Now our opponent just has a complete free roll to kill us here if they have the Soul Cauldron. Because they're playing a Commercial District, this might just be a thing that they're adding in their deck. So they might not be playing any green mana at all. This might just be the Surveil land they went for. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see what they exile just so I can get a little bit more information about what's in their deck, in case this build is a little bit more unusual. But we are dead here. So what they do is they target the Devourer. So then they put a counter on the Engineer. So this gains the ability, the activated ability of Devourer, but doesn't have the static ability where it dies if it has 7 power or greater. So they can just keep exiling cards until this dies. Until this can kill us. So they've got Malevolent Rumbles, Soul Cauldron. I'm just going to F6 this turn. We are dead. I just want to see what our opponent's cooking with. It looks exciting. Red Elemental Blast, Malevolent Rumble, Painter's Servant. Okay, so they are definitely a painted deck. That was not a surprise. Malevolent Rumble was really interesting. I can see why they're playing this. It's a pretty solid thing to have access to. I suspect, even though we're seeing things like Arab Mesa, I have to imagine that they are just on green. I don't think you can splash 2 colours into Painter like that. Okay, that was a bit of a crushing, but we've got some tools that are pretty good here. I would like some Pyrokinesis. I would like some Trash Master. Disruptor Flute can name Painter. That is a thing we can do. I don't think we're going all the way into Leyline. I think you could, but I don't think that's where I want to be. I think just having the removal is going to be more useful. Pyroblast, no. Makes the Moon. It can shut down our opponent's Urza Sagas, but that's it. We already had Wastelands for that. I don't think that's necessary. So we've got 4 cards I'm interested in bringing in. What are we removing to fit these in? This is the slightly trickier part of the proceedings. How good is a 2-1 against our opponent's deck? This is going to trade favourably into Goblins, like the Welders and the Engineers, so that seems good to me. Battle Cry Goblin is just good. These are sort of part of our core engines, really. We might be able to trim a Matron. How good is the Sharpshooter? It can kill some of the little guys, but Painter is not getting killed by Sharpshooter, is it? I think we'll replace this with a Pyrokinesis. That just makes a lot more sense. The Sling-gang Lieutenant is like a nice bit of reach that we have access to. But I think if we have like Trash Master in play instead of a Sling-gang Lieutenant, that's going to just be better for us all round. Pashalik Mons, again, we decided that pinging for 1 isn't the most important thing, so maybe that becomes a Pyrokinesis. And then we have 1 Pyrokinesis left. What are we doing with this one? How would I like to squeeze this one in? I think we need the gas ups here. This is a nice piece of removal. The Bombardiers will just completely control the board if we can get it down. I like the Howlsquad Heavy. We're here to play Howlsquad Heavy, so you're going to see that. Maybe we can trim... the Matron gets us Trash Master. I don't think we're trimming the Matron. Do we trim the Gempalm Incinerator? Is the Pyrokinesis is just a more reliable removal spell than the Incinerator. So I'm going to try it like this. I'm no Goblin's expert. I just love the little guys. Okay, so now we're not going to get caught out by a similar line like last time. We can ease our way in with these Aether Vials. This seems fine to me. Our opponent is not going to be boarding in Blood Moons, which is the thing that painted decks can do, but they're certainly not going to board in against us. So I'm going to go and get a Badlands here. I think that's going to be safe. And we're going to deploy an Aether Vial and start this cranking up. We have to decide what we want to get rid of here. I think on its own, Howlsquad Heavy is better than a solo Bombardiers. But Bombardiers obviously has some nice synergy with excess Aether Vials, or if we can find a different red card and have both, then we can just ping 2 damage every turn off of the token. So I'm pretty happy with where we're sat right now. I'm not going to wasteland this. I want to wasteland an Urza's Saga. And that is a more important catch here. So this gets us a Raucous Theater and hides the fact that we're going to wasteland our opponent next turn. I like that. And then we can just deploy this Aether Vial and sit back. I think if we have to make a decision, it will be the Broadside Bombardiers that goes here to the Pyrokinesis, but we shouldn't have to do that this turn. We should be able to see if we can draw another card and see what happens. A Malevolent Rumble. This card seems pretty cool. So what are they? They chose a Disruptor Flute. Okay. So the value of these Aether Vials has changed quite a bit. So let's get this Raucous Theater. A Goblin Lackey. That is just a red card that we could put on top. I don't think we want the Lackey. I think that the time for Lackeys is gone. We will put these counters on, obviously. When they get to higher numbers, we can work out if we're keeping them on those numbers or not. A Bloodstained Mire. So, what do I want to do here? If our opponent's going to spend time playing out this Disruptor Flute on our Aether Vials, that's fine by me. Don't want to sandbag this Wasteland. I don't want to have the opportunity to draw 2 Wastelands and then strip our opponent back more. So we could use the Broadside Bombardiers here and fling a Vial, since we expect them to disrupt a flute. We want them to disrupt a flute because we know we've got the Broadside. If we play the Broadside, maybe they name this instead and we lose some removal. So I think the plan here is start getting some friends on board. Again, we're very unlikely... Oh, here's the thing. I've not seen this before. There you go. Whenever one or more of your opponents lose life during your turn, if your speed is less than 4, you gain 1 speed. So we make a little friend. I don't think they're going to block here. So this takes us up to speed 2 now. Bit of a weird mechanic, this one. I don't particularly like mechanics that add extra bits of tracking, just as a personal taste. And it's quite funny that the max speed mechanic is actually one of the slower mechanics we've seen. Alright, so we have a Saga that we can wasteland next turn. Are they going to disrupt a flute and take out our wasteland before we get a chance to do that? I wonder. I'm going to tick both of these up. Okay, here is a Disruptor Flute. I'm going to wasteland this as a Saga. I don't want them to name the wasteland. So now they're going to name these Aether Vials, which is fine. We're going to just start throwing them. So we will still put counters on them. We have a Trash Master. Maybe we get rid of the Disruptor Flute down the stretch. But most likely these are getting thrown away. I wouldn't mind a red card here just to pitch. Okay, it's not a bad one. This can pump our other goblins if we want to. I think the play here is just get the Bombardiers going and really start sending all the damages over. They're going to make a little friend. They have a Lightning Bolt. That is upsetting. But we are still crashing for 4. We're going to get some more speed. Now, the mana ability from this might not be the most useful. We could hardcast a Pyrokinesis from it, so we don't actually have to pitch a card. That would be quite tasty. I'd love to draw a Trash Master. And the mana to cast it. That's what I'm looking for the next couple of turns. Ensnaring Bridge. 4 cards in our opponent's hand. Okay, so we do get to attack now. Right, I'm going to leave these on. No, we'll tick them both up, I think. I'm not sure that it matters that much. A Munitions Expert. An interesting one to have access to there. So if I play out this guy, we can still attack for a whole bunch here, and that's fine. Let's get more damages in. There's quite a lot of pressure. Right, they're having to block with their Eldrazi Spawn token. That's good news. So now we go to max speed. I have no idea if there's an actual card that looks like this. I think there is. By the way, there's got like symbols on the bottom and numbers and things. So this must be a token from the new set. A Grind Stone, you say? That is certainly a Magic the Gathering card that can do some work against us. I need to find a painter for this. They've got 3 cards in hand at present. So all our little friends get to attack here. Alright, we're just going to say no to these now. I'd like another red card. And Howlsquad Heavy. The downside of playing this is quite substantive. We could play this guy. So how much is it on? 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think we're just crashing here. I'm going to do anything before combat. We can always flash in a Munitions Expert. They're pyroblasting this. So this doesn't do anything, but it gets cards out of their hand. 2, 4, 6, 8 damage. So this is going to put them to 1 card in hand. So we could shoot our own Howlsquad Heavy here. Attack for 1, 2, 3. Oh no, this is pumping our guys, isn't it? So we could shoot this guy. If we shoot this guy, we can attack for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage. Okay. I had to do it in response to that. We didn't actually have the window to do anything else there. So this comes in for an attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this taps to cast us the Pyrokinesis. So I think it's okay to play this out. We should have played this out pre-combat. But I wanted to have access to this Munitions Expert. Just in case we needed to mess something up. A Malevolent Rumble. Sure. So they don't have the Pyroblast they need to protect their painter anymore, in theory. They've got a painter over there. There's an Ancient Tomb. So they do have the combo right now. So they're cracking this. We want them to tap the Ancient Tomb, I believe. And then we'll fire off this Pyrokinesis. Right, we know they don't have any cards in hand. So now we are just looking for Trashmaster. Sling-gang Lieutenant would be good in this spot. We don't have it. Ah, we've drawn the Trashmaster. Excellent. Our opponent will scoop when we put this on the stack. There it is. Alright. So let's blow up this in Stonebridge. Okay. Not too shabby there. We managed to get through in the end. So, how do we want to do things differently? Do we want this Disruptor Flute? Like, the Sling-gang Lieutenant against the Stonebridge is kind of tempting, isn't it? That we have access to. Do we need to have a Ringleader here? We have boarded in a bunch of non-goblins, so maybe we can board out a Ringleader? Or is it Hordemaster? Like, this digs us towards our big thing, so I don't think we can get rid of Ringleader. Maybe we can trim... It's either a Hordemaster or a Battle Cry Goblin. I think I'm going to try... Am I going to try and get rid of a Battle Cry Goblin? Like, this is a great mana sink for the Howlsquad Heavy. But I guess we didn't get any cards off the Hordemaster. Let's try it without the Hordemaster. I don't think I want to board this in for our opponent's grindstone. I'd rather just have removal because it's more flexible. If they're on a fair beatdown plan, we can blow up some like Dragon Engines or as a Saga tokens or whatever. So it's just going to be more useful in more games. Turn 1 Goblin Lackey is always a delight. But the rest of our hand isn't doing huge amounts of stuff. I'm basically going to need to draw something here to make this work. We just have an aggressive plan against the combo deck. Is that where I want to be? We do get to see 2 cards for our second turn, so Lackey's quite likely to be able to put something better than these little friends in. We do have an answer for Ezra's Saga. I think I'm going to keep this. Right, our deck is just filled to the brim with fun little red guys. No turn 1 play for our opponent, not bad. This probably means we're going to see a 1-2 that our opponent plays and just shut our creature down. Here's the Lackey. What have you got there? A Lightning Bolt? It's a Lightning Bolt. Sure. But we have plenty of guys. If they're just trying to kill our guys, then that's actually a good position for us. It's if they're trying to execute their combo that I'm worried. Don't painter me already. It's a painter. So now they can Pyroblast our land if they want. They do not want to do that. I appreciate that, opponent. Pyrokinesis. Love to see that. Okay, I think the play here is play a Matron. This might be good enough to get a Pyroblast out of our opponent's hand, which is one that won't get pointed at the Pyrokinesis. They might give us a really good opportunity here where they try and Pyroblast this, then we Pyrokinesis away the Painter, the Pyroblast fails, and then we get the Matron as well. So we get to trade 2 for 2, and then our Matron comes and gets us another card. Alright, we're just dealing with this. I think we just want the Trashmaster. I think that's the best here. It just covers our bases in so many different ways. If they go for the combo with Pyroblast backup, we will just lose. And, you know, that's what happens sometimes when you play Goblins and your opponent's got combo decks with a bit of protection. We've not got Thoughtseize, we've not got anything like that. We're just trying to kill their creatures and beat them in the face. It's a simple and noble life to be a Goblin. A Grindstone. Okay. Not in love with that one. They now don't have the ability... Well, they might have the ability to grind us off of a Simian Spirit Guide. So I don't really want to just go for it. So we can play out the Trash Master, and that might force our opponent's hand to do something. Which means we have to play out this Bloodstained Mire. So I would like a Badlands for the future. Let's try this out. I think this surprise pyrokinesis might be good here. Disruptor Flute. How do I feel about Disruptor Flute here? Okay, I think we let the Disruptor Flute happen, and then we see if they have a Spirit Guide and a Red Blast for this. This card is still good. So now I think is our opportunity to kill this. I think we pitch the Prospector. And then we crash for 1. Or for 2, sorry. Oh, they did have the Simian Spirit Guide and the Red Blast. Yeah, so we tried our best to try and force that out. But they had the Disruptor Flute as well, so they didn't need to do that. That is unfortunate, because now they can just, at their leisure, grindstone us out, and that's the end of the game. Yeah, GG's opponent. That was an interesting little contest, that one. Our opponent just had one too many things there. Thought we'd set ourselves up nicely, but sometimes you can't wriggle through. Let's go to round 2. This hand seems quite slow for round 2. We don't really do anything till turn 3 again, so I think we have to mulligan. Alright, I'm here for some Lackey gaming. What are we going to get rid of? I like having double Lackey. I think the Matron's pretty solid here. I think the Munitions Expert is the one that goes. Is that true? No, if we have the Munitions Expert, we can maybe fire something out of the way. Maybe we'll get rid of a Matron. So we could go turn 1 Lackey, turn 2 Munitions Expert, clear the blocker, get a free thing. Okay, they have a 0-1. The almighty 0-1. We don't have to worry about days. We do have to worry quite a bit about the old Wasteland, though. Our opponent is on Dimir tempo, most likely, which means they're going to have access to things like Fatal Push to jam us up. That's Goblin. Let's play this Lackey. Now, we can just keep playing Lackeys until they work. Now, connecting isn't going to be the most exciting with just 1, because we're just going to Matron for something else. But if we can connect with 2, we can get Matron and Muxus. And that is going to be tasty. I don't believe a fair deck like Dimir tempo will be able to beat like a turn 3 Muxus or whatever. Which we used to be able to do off of a very busted card called Sticker Goblin that is no longer with us. Alright, an Orcish Bowmasters. Well, well, well. If it isn't our 1-1 creature dying horribly. Nethergoyf, still a 0-1. Gonna attack for 0, not even attacking for 0. Very cowardly. So this can get us a Raucous Theater. And we can then play out the Goblin again. So we've got a little bit of selection for next turn. I am living in fear of Wastelands in quite a serious amount here. Okay, so this is a brainstorm. This is a good way to find that Wasteland, take out a Cavern. Like, they don't know that we're missing our next land drop yet. But they obviously know that the Cavern is something that's validating things like daisies. Alright, not a Wasteland. Happy to see that. They put 2 different types in, so Nethergoyf actually has power and toughness. They've left back 2 creatures, so we can't just blow 1 up, which is sad. And then end step, we will get our little theatre. Have a little check at the top of our library. I would very much like to have a land on top. I will play this mountain. I will play an uncounterable, I think it's the Howlsquad Heavy. Because the more turns that this sits in play, the more value it gets. And I'd rather get some value off of this and then play the broadside with stuff to fling. They let us go to combat, or they're going to blow this up. They let us go to combat. That's good news. So this gives other goblins haste, not itself. So I will attack with my 1-1. Would you like to stop us getting some more speed? Or would you like to... Orcish Bowmaster's going. This might... No. Well, that's so weird. Are they going to have Reanimate there, maybe? Or is it... They have a second Bowmaster, so they'd rather have the 2-2 body. I think that might be it. That would make sense. Well, obviously, we're not really a deck that cares that much about Orcish Bowmasters. So it's kind of... Whatever. This does put another type in to grow the Nethergoyf. So I guess that makes sense. Just to grow the Nethergoyf. And have something that can be a 2-2. Okay, so they're showing us red mana. So they're in that Grixis ballpark. Sure, you can attack me. That is fine. 4 cards on our opponent's hand. Plenty of mana to work with. A Murktide Regent, you say? Not a massive lover of that one. That is a 6/6 creature. That's quite large, isn't it? How do we get through a 6/6 creature like that? We could draw an Ancient Tomb. Then we can play the Bombardiers, play the Munitions Expert, ping this for 4, attack with Bombardiers, ping this for a bit more. That works. But this is a bit of a tricksy one. Our opponent is very firmly in command of this race. A Broadside Bombardiers. So we can attack for 2 here. That's all we have to do. Can't be countered, so that's always good news for us. So we make a little friend. Attack with this. Before blocks, we kill this. And then this is Menace, so we secure 2 points. Which gets us a bit more max speed. If we can get more mana, maybe we can do enough to get everything going. But the Murktide Regent hits pretty darn hard. I suspect we're going to see a Surveil land in our end step from our opponent. And start building up this Nethergoyf again. We could chump block the Nethergoyf so that we don't die to 2 hits from the Murktide Regent. Mystic Sanctuary getting nothing back. That's interesting. Brainstorm. Right, Nethergoyf is going to be a 2-power creature now. Tamiyo. That doesn't deal damage to us, so I guess that's fine for now. They've got a 3-drop, perhaps, if they're cracking this fetch. Well, they're just cracking for the Brainstorm, sure. Okay. This is going to flip the Tamiyo, which obviously makes our 1/1s a lot worse. But to be honest with you, the problem isn't the 1/1s right now. It's not us trying to deal damage. Okay, another Nethergoyf. Oh, sorry, they already drew 3 cards first with the first Brainstorm, so they didn't flip the Tamiyo. This is when you draw your 3rd card, so they're actually drawing like their 6th card. So we're still in the how do we deal with a problem like Murktide Regent phase of the game. And what is our solution to Murktide Regent here? We can kill it this turn. The cost to do so is quite high though. We have to Munitions Expert to ping this. And then I guess we sack the Lackey, that's not so bad. But then there's a creature in and our Bombardiers basically gets eaten up by a Nethergoyf. Would have quite liked to have seen another mana source before I saw this guy. Okay, here goes the thing we have. And these Nethergoyfs are going to be cracking at 3/4. Which is not really what I wanted either. So this attacks as well. And then we flash this in. So we ping down this Murktide Regent. And then we can sacrifice this Goblin token if we want to. Or we can sacrifice the Munitions Expert. I don't think this Goblin token is actually going to do anything here. We do lose the Broadside Bombardiers for this though. Not happy about that. But I don't think we can leave them with that flying blocker. If we can deploy this Munitions Expert next turn for a solid chunk of damage, that would be good. Stock up. This card is pretty good. There's another new one. Look at top 5, put 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom in any order. So it's sort of the love child of Dig Through Time and Divination. Seems like a pretty good way to gas up. Kind of reminds me of back in the day when people used to run Painful Truths in Legacy decks because you could pay 3, draw 3. But drawing the best 2 of 5 is probably better most of the time than drawing just raw 3 cards. It's easier to form a game plan with this sort of selection even though you're getting fewer cards. Like these decks are designed to run on cantrips rather than card advantage anyway. So this fits quite nicely into that shell. We're getting attacked by just a 4 power guy. Am I taking 4 damage here and going to 3? I think so. Keeping more goblins makes our Munitions Experts better. They're currently not showing Brazen Borrower mana. I thought Seize. So they're going to take our Munitions Expert most likely. We still have the Bombardiers, which is fine. It can blow something up. At a cost, obviously. Everything is very costly. Oh, they didn't take that. Okay. I would rather keep the Munitions Expert in this board. Okay. What are we doing here? So we can dome this for 5 and put it away. Attack with everything. Get killed on the crackback. That doesn't sound ideal, does it? We don't really need to attack with everything, do we? I would like to force through a little bit of damage so we have more mana, though. So I guess we go to attacks. I guess we can get blown out by a lightning bolt. So I think we're attacking with the Lackey and the token, and then we play the Munitions Expert, so we have an additional blocker. Blow up their Nethergoyf, so we force through 1 damage, so we get another thing on our speed. This isn't like the main thing we're trying to do with this guy. It's just making lots of friends for us. Am I ever blocking with Howlsquad Heavy here? Probably not. So I think this should attack 2. And then we will flash in this guy. Now they obviously know this is coming, so I'm a little bit worried about what they have. Okay, it just gets to go through. I suspect they are blocking the Lackey here, so we get to force 3 damage through. We got 2 blockers for their guy. We're pretty close to getting max speed where our little friend can do all the work. Stock up. Alright. Now they might have lightning bolts and that's just going to kill us, so that's why we do need to pressure our opponent. But if we can deploy this Matron and get something spicy that we can use, that we can put in with the Howlsquad Heavy, then I'll feel pretty good. So we have the mana to play a Muxus. Are they attacking here? They are attacking. They're getting themselves a clue. We will be chump blocking, obviously, because we don't want to die. Goodbye, little Munitions Expert. Another Tamiyo. This kills the other one, so they've got Tamiyo back for blocks. This is so they don't get hit by the Lackey. Ancient Tomb, that is quite an interesting one. 2 cards in our opponent's hand. They're always blocking this. I think we go to attacks here. Attack with these 3. Gives us enough blockers back. We want to be able to tap our Howlsquad Heavy. Brainstorm had to flip their Tamiyo here. I think flipping it and plussing it to -1 our creatures would have been better than blocking here anyway. So I suspect they don't have the Brainstorm. Like they would have been able to flip their other Tamiyo and then play this one. Right, they're cracking their fetch land. A Petty Theft, bouncing our Howlsquad Heavy. We do have max speed right now, but we don't have anything to do with that max speed. Intriguing. So, what am I playing here? I think we need the Howlsquad Heavy so we have enough mana next turn to try and win the game. I'm going to play this Ancient Tomb. We could play this Matron out. I don't want to be dead to Orcish Bowmasters though. They're cracking their clue token. If they don't have counter magic, then we are away here. Because we can just put a Muxus into play with haste. And our opponent will have a very bad time. Nile Spellbomb, that does not do anything here. If they crack this, and they're not deploying the Brazen Borrower, and that is good news for us. This is the exact sort of game we want to be playing with goblins. Okay. Tamiyo's getting a clue. I would very much like to put a creature under the bus. So they can flip the Tamiyo here. But this means they're not killing us on the next turn. Because they're not playing this Brazen Borrower. And they put an artifact in, so it's bigger, but this is lethal anyway. It doesn't matter what size it is. It's already too big. They're holding up Petty Theft / Orcish Bowmaster mana. Which is... Okay, so now they do have the mana for the Brazen Borrower as well. So that makes sense now. Yikes. The best draw for us is probably Cavern of Souls. If they have the Petty Theft and can stop our Howlsquad Heavy from tapping for mana, then we're going to be in a bit of a rough spot. If we draw anything that pumps our guys and the Lackey gets in as well. Oh, they're cracking the clue. Don't like that from our opponent there. We obviously don't know what's in their hand. A Wasteland. I'm going to cast an uncounterable Goblin Matron. That resolved very quickly. So we could get this sling-gang lieutenant. I don't think that's actually the way here. How much life does that give us? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that would be lethal without needing to go to combat. We could get the Muxus and just spin and hope the Muxus is good. We could get a pump effect so that we can pump all of our guys and swing through and kill our opponents. I think it's a sling-gang lieutenant. I think it's hard for our opponent to win through this if it resolves. Oh, we just did. Okay, that's probably game then. Take out that land since we're here. I'll make a goblin. We won't attack anything. Okay, we have to attack, but our opponent's just scooping up. Alright, so we managed to grind our opponent down quite nicely in the end. This is a matchup where these Pyroblasts look pretty tasty to me. I don't know if we want to have Mages of the Moon. I also find it weird that there's one Mages of the Moon here. Feels like a difficult thing to hit into. Leyline of the Void shuts off quite a lot of their stuff, actually. It's the Nethergoyf, the Tamiyo Minus, and the Murktide Regent. So this can shut off basically all of their decent threats. But do we need that? Would I rather just have a Pyroblast so we can actually just kill stuff instead of having to Because the Pyroblast and stuff are good after the fact. We need to have the ley line before they cast the things. Whereas the Pyroblasts, if we just draw them, then we can just go point them at Murktide and it's fine. So I think these are better. Our opponent's not going to be exiling our creatures, so things like Pashalik Mons here, grinding them down is going to be good. I'm not really sure this is a Sharpshooter matchup. We can obviously smash a bunch of Orcish Bowmaster tokens. We're not really bothered by Orcish Bowmaster that much. So that's an interesting thought, isn't it? I don't really like the Greasewrench Goblin here, because our opponent's got these Bowmasters. So yeah, I think we can cut these for a couple of Pyroblasts. We don't need to be super fast out the gates versus our opponent, because it's going to be a bit of a grindy one, as you saw. The Munitions Experts were decent here. Hordemaster is going to be card advantage. Battle Cry Goblin's pretty bonkers. This card is good. Maybe it is the Sharpshooter that goes. And we're looking for one more card to fit in this extra Pyroblast. Maybe it's the Gempalm Incinerator. Maybe it's just one Munitions Expert, actually. The Gempalm Incinerator is uncounterable. That is relevant. It also cantrips and replaces itself, which is often going to be better than the 1/1 body. But this deals more damage, usually, than an Incinerator, because this puts an additional body on the board. So maybe... I'm just thinking, is there a situation where we're going to want to have this Incinerator in our deck to tutor for, or should we just have the Munitions Expert and be fine with that? I think we're going to go for the Expert here. Sorry, my beloved Onslaught Goblins. You are not doing it today for me. Let's go with this. I don't think we want things like Pyrokinesis or whatever either. Our opponent might have access to a Grafdigger's Cage to stop Muxus type stuff. We only have one Muxus, so that's not really a big deal. Okay, we have Aether Vial. We have this beautiful little Pyroblast as well. What's our opponent up to? Playing a guy, playing a guy. So we have a decision right now that is quite important. Are we playing around days or not? Given the speed of this matchup, I think we can probably afford to play around days. So we're going to go get the Raucous Theater here, and then next turn we can play around days by playing out the Aether Vial. And if at some point our opponent stumbles for mana, then we can try and capitalise on that. A Ponder, so it's going to be a 2/3 Netherglyph. The old Black Curd Ape here. They missed a land drop over there. They have. Well, well, well. I think we know what we're about to do. That is a very good thing to work towards. I'm going to leave that on top. We've only got one, and I do love a bit of Muxus. Let's play this Aether Vial. Look at days here, and we can pay. Oh, they got a Force of Will. Take them off their land. Now, we are getting beat down a little bit. We're going to need to find something, but our opponent can't play the game. They just have this one thing they get to turn sideways, which is fine. We'd probably play out this Munitions Expert this turn. Ah, look at that red mana. Very unfair. I don't think I'm Pyroblasting that. Pyroblast is for like Clutch Tameo or Murktide. We need to be disciplined with what we're doing with that. Let's play out this Munitions Expert here. Ping that guy for one. Take that. Send in a message. A Goblin Lackey, you say? So I could deploy this Munitions Expert, which deals 2 damage, and then we can double block. Or I could just play this Lackey and see what our opponent wants to do about it. I think I like doing that. I don't think I'm blocking here. I want to keep our ability to Munitions Expert for more. Let's put our opponent in the are they attacking or blocking mode. Is it Fatal Push or are we getting Thoughtseized? No. Black and a red. A Molten Collapse. I'm going to play this. They might have boarded out all of their removal anyway. So what I'm going to do here is ping this for 3 in response. So this can't attack this turn without dying. And then they don't seem to be countering any of our spells. Alright, Broadside, are you good? Please be good. Alright, we're just in. So now we attack with all of our creatures. This pings a guy away. And now we're in control of the game. Oh, I love a bit of goblins. This is some proper Magic the Gathering as well. Both interacting with each other, trying to wriggle our own little ways through. This is what everyone wants to see. At least I hope so. Fatal Push. Sure. We've got another Bombardiers. A Thoughtseize. Alright, they're probably going to take the Bombardiers. Because we're a long way off of Muxus. But that means that we've got this in our back pocket. And if we ever get to this stage, then it's going to be lights out for our opponent. Let's bash for 1. Let's get this Matron down. Do you know what I'm going to fetch here? I think I want to get the Howlsquad Heavy. This card has been quite impressive in this matchup so far. I think I'm going to continue trying to leverage it. This also gives us the mana for Muxus, whilst also being a really good threat that scales with every turn. Alright, our opponent has had enough. The Howlsquad Heavy is going to get the job done. So, chalk one up for our favourite little Goblin driver. Let's go to round number 3. That seems fine. It seems like some classic Goblins action here. We're getting Thoughtseized. We are getting Thoughtseized. I suspect we might lose the Vial here if our opponent wants to interact with our stuff on the stack. Sure, if they just want to take out some key stuff that they're worried about, then we'll get an inclination of what they're up to. But by taking the Vial, we don't have a turn 1 play. We could always just immediately draw a Goblin Lackey though. That would be nice. Apologies, I've had my mic off for some time. I had a cough. And I don't know how long I've been rambling into no sound for. So apologies for that one. So what I was just saying here was Pyrokinesis is a card that I don't particularly like here, but I think we kind of need it as well, which is a bit awkward. A Goblin Lackey. It's a Magic the Gathering card that does stuff, isn't it? Put this out on Goblin. This gives us the ability to play Munitions Expert and kill something. Petromos. This doesn't do anything on its own. It's like an up the beanstalk for them in a lot of ways. Yep, here we go. Goodbye, Goblin Lackey. I don't think there's any point playing the Munitions Expert here. I would like to beat down, but I don't think just playing a 2-mana 1/1 is where it's at. Okay, I guess we'll play this out. We have hard cast Pyrokinesis next turn if we need it. Not that it can deal with Ketramos. I think we're just so cold in this matchup. Like, our hand wasn't great either. Maybe we go to 5. But we need 3 drops, so we need a critical amount of mana as well. I figured having the Raucous Theater as a bit of surveil action would be enough. Again, I still don't think we're playing this Munitions Expert. Oh dear. I don't know how we're going to win this game. We had quite a land heavy hand. We've drawn quite poorly. Our opponent's deck is basically kitted out to beat any mid-range matchup, because they're always going to have more removal than you can possibly imagine. Oh dear, oh dear. Another Ancient 2, not really the one we wanted. They're a long way off of Ketramos attacking, but it is still just being up the beanstalk for them. Emperor of Bones. Okay. I haven't left up black mana because they don't have any, so they're not going to be able to... We're just getting rid of our Wasteland. We can kill this Overlord. It doesn't feel great. Nothing feels great about this matchup. I'm pretty much ready to scoop this one up, to be honest. I'm not having a good time over here. So we put 4 damage on this one, I guess. Now the issue is the Emperor of Bones is just going to bring it back. If they somehow interact with this Munitions Expert on us, like killing it so he doesn't ping at all, then we are just going to scoop this one up. Yep, that'll do. That matchup feels pretty much unwinnable. I don't know what we're supposed to do. They just have an infinite slew of removal and card advantage and creatures that are bigger. That feels absolutely miserable. Alright. Unfortunately, after, 4 rounds, we're only 1-3, so a bit of a tough league for today. Let's see if we can get some love for the boys in the final round and put on some pity points with the 2-3. Okay, this hand does lackey things. Again, we're on the draw, which is not really where I want to be. One day, we will connect with a Goblin Lackey. Is this a chalice? A defense grid? Well, we're probably going to lose to any sort of deck that wants to play defense grids, because they're just going to combo underneath what we're doing. Let's go for Goblin. Cast this. Now, they might be a deck that will not be putting the creatures into play to block our Lackey, which means maybe we can get through with his Lackey, get the Muxus, and that will give us enough. But we might be dead this turn. The Glaring Fleshraker. That is a creature we get to kill next turn. Please don't play anything. Okay, so now they will have a blocker, and we get nothing. Oh dear, oh dear. It's a hard time being a poor little goblin. Take out this Fleshraker. We at least get them to block with the Eldrazi spawn. So we're achieving something here. Yep, and maybe they don't have another Fleshraker and we get to play the Muxus next turn off of the Lackey trigger. We can but hope. Candelabra of Tornos. Okay, that gives them a little bit more mana. This also gives them Metalcraft, which is pretty key. So they could play the One Ring this turn, which means the Lackey doesn't get to put anything in this turn. But the life total isn't the highest thing I've ever seen. Yep, so there is the One Ring. Not a card that we get to interact with or that we have any real recourse to. This is Disruptor Flute, is what we're hoping to do. So this now taps for 2 mana. Okay. A Wasteland. So we can waste down one of our opponent's workshops. That feels like a thing that we should probably be doing. There's no point attacking here because our creatures won't deal damage because they have protection. But we can take out one of their workshops. That cuts them off of 3 mana, which is not bad. We can play 2 1-drops and pass. That's fine. No point attacking here. As you see, it doesn't do anything. I'm not going to hold it back on blocks because we're not blocking at all. But I was just demonstrating that it doesn't do anything. Because the way protection works is it prevents damage that would be dealt to you, so you can't be dealt damage by. Our opponent having that Mox Opal to go with their Fleshraker might have been the thing that was enough to win in this game. Because just not getting hit by that Lackey when we have our one of Muxus in hand is a pretty big game. Opponent's got a Plane and Nexus, so their Urza's Workshop is now tapping for more mana. A Glaring Fleshraker. Well, well, well. We have 2 Lackeys, so we'll need a follow-up to have the blockers for this. And maybe we can find a situation where we can actually take out one of these. Alright, so they've got a Mox Opal, 2 cards in hand. So what is their follow-up? Untapping some lands. They're pretty low in terms of this Ancient Tomb. So maybe we can leverage that. Karn the Great Creator. Our opponent has multiple blockers now, and they have access to 4 mana. What fresh nonsense is this going to be for us? They could just make the defense grid into a creature, because it actually has pretty good stats into our board. Right, they're getting another card. Could be a Walking Ballista for 2. That can kill 2 of our guys permanently. There it is. Goodbye, Goblin Lackey. Alright. What is the plan? We play Pashalik Mons, they immediately kill our stuff. We play Skirk Prospector, they immediately kill our stuff. Let's play Skirk Prospector. They're going to ping down our 2 Lackeys in response, so we can't turn them into mana. Oh, they didn't. That's kind of big news. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. If we play out the Pashalik Mons, we have to sacrifice everything, and that puts our opponent to 1. Is that better than just sacrificing a bunch of stuff now? Alright, I'm going to play the Pashalik Mons. So we don't need to find much here to kill our opponent. I think we're going for the win here rather than whatever, but we'll see what our opponent does. Okay, so just pinging this guy straight away. So this means they can't ping everything down, right? So if we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we don't have the mana to do what we want now. Maybe we're supposed to have just put Muxus on the stack. Pinging the Lackey. Okay. So if we attack with everything, what happens? We lose the Lackey into the Fleshraker, and then we hit our opponent for 5. Or probably for 3 because they block with the spawn as well. So if we attack everything at Karn... Wait, no, the Pashalik Mons doesn't get to attack, does it? So they block here and here, and we only do 1 damage to Karn. 1 damage means if this... They can't lattice lock us next turn. Alright, I think that makes sense. I don't like it, but they can lattice lock us, and it should be pretty elementary to win from that point. So we can ping down this Fleshraker. I think that makes the most sense here. This forces them into tapping Ancient Tomb a little bit. They've got the 1 ring burning on their life total already. So they're what, 5 now? They go to 3, which is dead on board, if they deploy anything using this Ancient Tomb. Alright, what are they going to find here? Some sort of ancient artifact. Paradox Engine, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if they have a 0 drop, or a 1 drop, or whatever, to go with this Paradox Engine, we are dead. We could have avoided this by pinging the Karn, but there's no way we win if they get to rattle off stuff with the Fleshraker. Just kind of a down if you do, down if you don't situation. If we play out the Pashalik Mons first, and then just blow up 2 things, but then we get the Skirk Prospector afterwards, so then we get to at least ping for a bunch of stuff. Right, so we're untapping some lands here. Our opponent just gets to sort of tee off. The 1 ring should lead to victory pretty quickly here. Mystic Forge. Okay, so this untaps their Candelabra of Taunus, so this gives them more mana every turn cycle. This gives them more cards. Every cycle of spell. I don't think we're going to win from there. Our opponent should just be able to rattle off a win, and I don't think you nor me wants to sit there and watch that happen. I would like to have access to Disruptor Flute and Trashmaster, please. I don't think we want the Incinerator, and I don't. The Sharpshooter actually looks good here because we can ping down all of the guys, and even if they sacrifice them, it still untaps our friend. So that's not too shabby. And what are the other cuts here? Is Aether Vial too slow to do anything here? Honestly, it does feel pretty slow. Would I like some Pyrokinesis to kill the annoying Flesh Raker? I think so. I think we just off of Aether Vials. Because by the time it's built up the counters, we'd probably just lose. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Maybe Matron is a touch slow and I just don't want to get killed by that annoying thing. No red mana, so this is an easy mulligan. Goblin Lackey into other stuff. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but this is what we're playing. Keep this. I think we put back a land and try and roll high into making all the Lackey stuff happen. So we do this one first so that we can use the Raucous Theater to get towards another mana source so that we have the ability to cast our 3 dots when the time comes. Alright, Goblin Lackey. Is this the one time we connect with you? Left. Are we just getting the one ringed on turn 1 here? If they... Okay, they didn't. This could just be a Kozilek's command, which would obviously be rubbish for us. Let's attack. Can I connect with Goblin Lackey one time? One time. Oh wow, we're going to get to do it. Let's put in this sling-gang Lieutenant. I'm going to play this, and I'm going to hold up the ability to play the Disruptor Flute. If our opponent plays the One Ring, we can play the Disruptor Flute so that they can't activate it. We could let them tap it once and then play the Disruptor Flute, so we have an additional bit of burn going on. We give our opponent 1 card, and it's probably worth 3 damage to us. Uncertain if that's a good idea or not. We can also play this on Karn, but we have Karn covered to a reasonable extent here. Candelabra of Tornos. A Mox Opal. 4 cards on our opponent's hand. So they got 6 mana available this turn, I believe, because they can Candelabra and untap their tomb. That obviously gives us a decent chunk of life out of our opponent if they're tapping their Ancient Tomb twice. Pashalik Mons plus sling-gang Lieutenant is pretty good though. Karn the Great Creator. Let's say no to Karn the Great Creator. So they can have their Karn, but it won't do anything. So they've kind of wasted their mana this turn and their activation of the Grim Monolith. I believe we are attacking our opponent's life total as much as humanly possible. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm going to put in the Pashalik Mons here, because Pashalik Mons gives us the ability to ping down like a Glaring Flesh Raker before it starts popping off. Alright, the one time Goblin Lackey is doing the thing and it feels good. Alright, it was so good that we managed to win off the back of it. That is nice. Pyrokinesis, by the way, does not hit Planeswalkers. That's an important thing to remember. We could play Magus of the Moon. I don't think I want to. Gempalm Incinerator is just creatures. Okay, no, I think we're just going in as is. I think our Disruptor Flute was pretty clutch there. I don't know what our opponent was going to get, but they could have got a whole bunch of different things. It might have been able to get a 1 ring there. Now, they only had another 2 mana available. I don't know. What does this hand do? Nothing. Okay, we can't keep a hand that does nothing. What does this hand do? It's also nothing. Alright, opponents. I think you're going to have a jolly fine game 3 here. I guess we keep it... Can we even keep this? Is it better to go to 4 cards than have this hand that will die before playing a spell? I believe it's better to mulligan to some 1-drops. Okay, we can keep this. So we have to put 3 cards away. I'm going to keep my 1-drop. I think I haven't got time for this. I like the Wasteland. That is some interaction. It's probably these 4 cards. And we just hope to draw some more goblins along the way. Right, we have pressure. We have a little bit of disruption. And then hopefully we'll draw some of the many, many goblins on our deck and can play them. Candelabra of Tornos. Now there is a very strong argument to Wasteland this Planar Nexus to stop them getting to 4 mana on turn 2. I honestly think I like that. This turns on their Urza's Towers. It turns on their other Urza land, the Workshop. I think just cutting out from underneath them before they get much out of it makes sense. Yep, so they have the tower, so we stop them playing the 1 ring on turn 2 there. Right, a land. I don't hate having the land. Maybe we'll actually use the exhaust ability of our Greasewrench Goblin. Okay, so they had another Planar Nexus, so we didn't really achieve very much with stopping our opponent. The 1 ring. How are we going to beat a turn 3 1 ring when we just have a 2-1? It probably involves putting Muxus into play somehow. But I suspect our opponent wins this game in about 2 to 3 turns. Pashalik Mons. That's a guy that we can cast that sometimes does things. Okay. They continue to draw a bunch of cards with the One Ring. A Mystic Forge, because they required another card advantage engine, apparently. Alright, Workshop taps for 2 because they have Metalcraft. Oh, sorry, taps for 3 because there's a Towers and there's a land as well. Just an actual Workshop right there. They're untapping their 2 lands to tap for 3, so they're going to put 7 mana in their pool here. Are they going to put us out of our misery right now? Khan the Great Creator. What is this going to find? We do get to pressure the Khan, so it's not like we're just dead. Okay, they have a Flesh Raker as well, apparently. So maybe we're not pressuring the Khan. Let's see what they get here. I suspect we're just dead. Like, this doesn't feel like where we want to be as a poor little Goblins player. A Paradox Engine. So this is basically the game next turn. I don't really know what we're supposed to do here. I believe we should probably just hit the concede button, but I will take one more draw and see if we can find something miraculous. An Ancient Tomb. This does give us more mana, but the only thing we're playing are these bad cards, so I think it has to go into the graveyard. Like, these cards aren't bad, but they're just bad in this situation. A Mountain. That doesn't feel spectacular, does it? So I guess we play the Pashalik Mons. We attack the Khan, I guess. We always get to ping the Khan down for at least 1 this turn, because if they block, we get to ping because a creature dies. Okay, so we smash Khan for 1. For 2, sorry, down to 1. And then our opponent casts the Paradox Engine and casts any other spell and we lose the game. So we have 6 mana, 7 mana, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mana showing. So this should be pretty elementary for them to win here. Saga, so they got 12 mana now. Here comes the Paradox Engine. Do they miraculously have 8 lands in hand and just lands on top of their library? If they cast a single spell, I'm going to concede the game. Here it comes. Right, they're just Candelabra of Tornasing first. And now we get to see what they're doing. Any spell. There it is. We're dead. Okay, that was pretty miserable. I think something to note about the Khanforge deck is while it's now worse against blue decks because there's no Vexing Bauble and people get to counterspell stuff, it is, in a lot of ways, actually better against the other decks because it's not running 4 Vexing Baubles which were dead in other matchups. So for a poor Goblins player like us, it really is a real kick in to play against someone like this. Force of Vigor is also something that's online against our opponent now that there's no Vexing Bauble, but then Force of Vigor isn't actually that good when the scariest thing they do is usually the One Ring. Anyway, that's the end of the match in the league. We finished with a very poor 1-4 result. So why did this happen? Let's talk about it. So we played Goblin Lackey in every single round, and we connected with it only in 1 game. That feels like a quite telling indictment of how this whole game played out, how this whole league played out. Like, the Goblin Lackey is one of the most busted things that you can do in Goblins. It just comes in on turn 1, turn 2, all of a sudden you've got like a Muxus or whatever, or you're cheating up the curve with this sort of stuff. But if you don't get to do that, this is just a 1-mana 1/1 that can't attack into a bunch of stuff and feels very, very weak. Considering we're not even playing that many high-end stuff that we can put in with it, we could just be having 3 drops instead that we cast on turn 2 off of fast mana like Ancient Tomb, and it kind of ends up being very similar to having the Lackey anyway. Aether Vial also felt very slow today, which is kind of how I feel about Aether Vial in general. What I will say is the one round where we had like a big proper game against the blue-black deck was awesome. That was like the exact sort of Magic that people like myself and many others love to play. Lots of interaction, lots of back and forth, trying to sculpt out game plans, having a lot of to-in and throw-in. That's exactly what Magic's supposed to be. So I'm glad that we managed to get to do that with Goblins. It was unfortunate that some of the other games weren't. The black-white matchup, I think that is a fair matchup. We could have a little bit of back and forth, and we did a little bit in game 1. But game 2, we just had very poor resources at our disposal, and our opponent's deck was very much designed to pick apart everything we were doing. So, yeah, tough time to be Goblins. We're looking at a format that is nearly 50% combo decks, and combo decks that go underneath Goblins is a tough place to be. Now, we're addressing that in the sideboard. We have a lot of graveyard hate, but we didn't play against the graveyard combo decks, so sucks to be us, I guess. So that was kind of where we were falling down, was the fact that you can only tech into a certain amount of stuff, and graveyard combo decks are like the most prevalent form of combo deck in Legacy, so it makes sense to tech into that. But there are like a string of other combo decks, and if we get paired into them, we're just going to have a rough time, as you saw today. But we did get to play 2 rounds that weren't combo decks, so that was something. We did get to see that really sweet Necrodominance deck as well, the Necrodominance Death Shadow deck. I might have to try and find that list and have a crack with it. But yeah, I do love Goblins. I think it's a really good fun deck to play. It feels like a dangerous time to be playing this in the format right now, because there's just so many scary things that can ruin our day. But if you pair into Graveyard combo, at least we can sort of address that, and it's not so bad. But there's a whole bunch of other combo decks that are going to give us a rough time, although we're okay into Breakfast, but like Carnforge and Storm, anything that's trying to kill us on turn 1, not using the Graveyard, is going to be rough, like that Necrodominance deck where they killed us on turn 1. Yeah, a lot to ask for the poor little Goblins in this day and age, but what I will say is Howlsquad Heavy felt really good. This felt so much better than the Goblin War Chiefs used to, and the fact is, being a 2 and a red instead of 1 red is also a big deal. But yeah, this just brings a lot of strength to the deck, really. I think what you might actually want to do with Goblins these days, I could be wrong, but you might want to be playing more like a mono-red Stompy deck, where you're playing more of these sorts of lands, and maybe even some Chrome Mox type action, and just playing out Howlsquad Heavies, Goblin Rabble-Masters, Broadside Bombardiers, that sort of jam, instead of like this techie stuff. Because like a 1-mana 2/1 didn't feel very good. The Goblin Lackey only connected once. Now, we did win the game where the Goblin Lackey connected, but the amount of times we played this and it did nothing was so high. Now, it did soak up a little bit of removal here and there, which is fine, but it also got walled off by stuff or just killed incidentally by Bowmasters. It felt like a big ask. I'm not convinced on Aether Vial in the format right now because of how slow it is compared to other stuff we're doing, but obviously in the blue-black matchup, this is a cool thing to have access to. So yeah, I think maybe there's like a stompier Goblins build that I might have a look at some point. I also do like the Food Chain Goblins, because of course I do, I love Food Chain, which is like a green build to cast the Food Chain, and has the combo with Kiki Jiki and the Conspicuous Snoop that lets you play cards off the top. Or, sorry, becomes the creature that's on top of your library. So you end up having a Kiki Jiki that can just copy itself loads of times. And then you get to ping a bunch of stuff. Anyway, that deck's really cool. I've played it on the channel before. Search it out if you want to see some Food Chain Goblins. But yeah, I like to play some more Goblins. I think I'll try something a bit different next time. This one didn't quite work out for us. But I'm not an expert at playing Goblins either. But it did feel like a pretty rough time to be playing our fun little red creatures. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. It does help the channel out and doesn't cost you anything. And I would love to try and hit my 5k subscribers in April for my birthday. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.